Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast, the original Alien and Predator podcast. I'm regular host Aaron Percival, or as I'm known on our corner of the internet, Corporal Hicks. And joining me are my regular podcasting hosts.
I am co-host Adam Zeller, known as RidgeTop on our forums.
Eric Adams, otherwise known as Xenomorphine.
And I'm AJ, aka Voodoo Magic.
And this is episode 117. And it's a little sort of mutation of one we intended to do earlier on in the year, with sort of speculation of where the franchise was going to go. But then, the outbreak happened and, destroyed the entertainment industry and every industry. And, So this isn't going to be so much a speculative podcast as so much as a here's what we'd like to see happen kind of podcast, maybe with a little bit of basis in speculation. But it's mostly just more of a personal desires of the directions we'd like to see the stories or the media itself or other the platforms, that kind of thing, just evolve. And it should be interesting because I don't think we've done anything like this for a goddamn while, so should be fun. So AJ, you start us off with this one.
Okay. I really gave this some thought, really processed what I would think would reinvigorate and bring longevity to the franchise. And if I was an executive and put in charge, pretty much I would have steps I would take. I would put them in phases, and you guys feel free to interject between each of my phases to express how you agree or disagree. But the first thing I would do is rebrand the franchise. I have a little visual aid.
Yeah, for those listening rather than watching, AJ's come complete with, I don't want to say PowerPoint presentation since this is in cans, but handouts.
Title cards.
You're more prepared than
Title
I am.
cards, yeah. But my phase one would be rebrand. I mean, the license, Alien versus Predator, the title, it has to be changed. Alien versus Predator limits scope. It constricts one's imagination. It confines these creatures to exactly that, the conflict. And there's so much fascinating stuff to these amazing creatures that needs to be conveyed to the eyes of the consumer. So Alien versus Predator title, gone. Logo, you're out of here. It's time to refresh things, and across all forms of media. So instead of Alien versus Predator universe, I would go ahead and change it to simply Alien Predator. I mean, and versus, did I say Alien versus Predator? Yeah. Instead of Alien versus Predator, I would simply change it to Alien Predator Universe. Or if they want to give a nod to the best website in the world, Alien Predator Galaxy, But pretty much I think a rebranding is in order. I don't know. What do you guys feel about that?
It's an interesting thought because when we've talked in the past, just offhandedly about rebranding things, nothing serious. But I always said if I had to rebrand the website, I would just make it Alien and Predator Galaxy. So it's not something I haven't thought about before, but from my perspective, it was always more about SEO and searches and stuff, rather than your thing about it being the conflict, which I've never really thought about before. I've never really thought about the implications of the verses being in the title, because
it really widens the scope if you take that verses out of it. I really find it limiting. I find it constricting. And there's so much more that I think the Alien Predator universe can be expanded to, which I'm going to go further into. But just as a selling point to your average consumer, it feels like a crossover, and I think it almost cheapens the
Well,
experience.
I remember back when the first movie adaptation was, starting to come about. That was something that was doing the rounds on the forums, but I think basically the agreement was that the versus part, it's like Freddy versus Jason. When you put something versus something, it makes it feel like it cheapens it like a wrestling match because you've got something versus something. But the problem is, how are the marketing people going to otherwise find an easy way to encapsulate it is about a conflict between this and this? Because it's not like Star Trek where you can say Federation versus Klingons. It's Star Trek. That is the whole thing. We haven't got a single, like, we haven't got the Gigaverse or anything. So it's difficult to find a way marketing wise to how you can convey it is about the conflict between this creature and this creature, purely from a marketing perspective. But I do agree, it does. There always is that thing at the back of my mind when I talk to like people who aren't fans. I was like, oh, it's something, the comic. Oh, what was it called? That was called Aliens versus Predator. So there is that like shallow feel to it. But the problem is, what do you replace it with? That's the issue.
The verses, I think, imply spectacle. It does give it this
again, it's like Freddy
weighty
versus
kind
Jason.
of feel. Yeah.
How else do you?
Especially,
it's spectacle for the first time, I would assume, but the more you see it, it loses that wonder.
That could be said of any franchise, really. It's always a struggle to keep things new and not keep things from getting stale, but maintain enough of the original core ideas to keep fans happy.
I would disagree with Star Trek, as Eric was saying. It doesn't lose that spectacle. It doesn't, because it's more about the battle. It's a universe.
You see, that's the kind of it's kind of like what Ridley Scott was talking about recently. Those comments. What was it when he was promoting Raised by Wolves? And he was talking about the next film not necessarily being... Hang on, let me bring it up so I'm not talking bullshit here.
He's doing another The Beast is Cooked thing.
No, this was different. It was the same... Well... where is it? When he was asked about doing a new film, he said, that's in process. We went down a route to try and invent the wheel with Prometheus and Covenant. Whether or not we go directly back to that is doubtful because Prometheus woke it up very well. But you're asking fundamental questions like, has the alien himself the face of it? Yeah, well, it does his run out of steam then. But then he says, do you have to rethink the whole bloody thing and simply use the word to franchise? That's always the fundamental question. And that's an interesting thing because Prometheus, as frustrating as it was as an overall package, it opened up a lot of other avenues for the franchise to take. But at what point have you gone too far down that road that it feels wrong to call it Alien anymore? So maybe branding is a bit of a problem in terms of the scope of the stories that you can tell and what you think of them.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. I got to defend Alien versus Predator as a title. I think there's some history there with fans in terms of some really excellent comics and games that have done that concept justice. I know the two films are not popular with people, and I just don't know how you could do, if there was going to be a third Alien and Predator film, how you could just have it be Alien/Predator or Alien and Predator and then have some subtitle. People would expect some kind of conflict there. That's just going to be the mainstream audience expectation. That's not to say that you have to fully focus on that conflict or have it permeate the entire film. I think, like, for example, if we're going with the stories of the games, both AVP 2 and Rebellion's 2010 AVP, there were only a few parts in the campaign where the aliens and predators were in direct conflict, unless you were playing the predator side of things, when it was much more often. But if you were a Marine or Alien campaign, it was mostly felt like an Aliens universe story. The Predator just kind of happened to be there, and there were a few events where he showed up, unless it was from the Predator's perspective. So do I think you could make an AVP movie and have it be more Alien focused or more Predator focused? Yeah, I think you could. I still think some sort of conflict expectation would be there. And for me, that's one of the things that made AVP unique is I felt like, yeah, with Versus, you typically expect kind of schlock or it's just going to be a crossover, but I think AVP always kind of rose above that for me. And maybe that's just me being a biased fan, but given that they were both Fox properties and they both seemed to fit so well together, which is why the initial comic was made, it didn't feel like a superhero crossover where you kind of just have to like go with it. It felt like these things could naturally coexist in the same universe. So I'm always going to like the AVP title, and I do hope to see a third AVP film. I mean, AVPR was originally just going to be called Aliens versus Predator, which kind of harkens back to the comics and games. And I think if you were going to do a soft reboot, you could just go with that. You could just go with Aliens versus Predator. Maybe even tie it in with the 35th anniversary of Aliens coming up. And give the fans what they want with that future war with the Colonial Marines. I guess future setting, not massive future war. This isn't Terminator, but yeah. So I do like the AVP branding, and maybe I'm alone on that. And I don't think it would be good to just be Alien and Predator or Alien/Predator, or however you would do it personally.
The thing is,
the alternative is if they do it like Prometheus, choose a different title completely, and you need something like the Alien and Predator franchise where they're famous enough that once you tell people, it's about AVP, people will get it. But do you want to make that leap from a marketing point of view?
That would be if you were to merge all the franchises, which is what the paper you put up there, Voodoo. Yeah. Merge the franchises. A lot of fans would not be on board with that. I think right now we have three franchises, actually. We have Alien, we have Predator, and we have AVP. Now, we were going to have four. When Prometheus came out, we were treating that as the start of a new franchise that happened to be in the Alien universe. However, with Alien Covenant, Ridley Scott kind of retroactively made Prometheus an Alien film. So for all intents and purposes, Prometheus is part of the Alien franchise, even though when I first saw it, I didn't consider it as such. I don't think either of us did, Aaron. We considered it a new franchise that happened to be in the Alien universe.
The thing with that is it's another one of those like canon arguments where I loathe it because it's meaningless to us, but on a corporate professional level it is meaningful, because with the franchises, with them being separate, it's financial stuff. It's like why you're not going to see the aliens rocking up in Hunting Grounds, because that's a Predator licensed game, not an Alien versus Predator licensed game, and it matters for those kind of people, not necessarily us. And that argument with like Prometheus, because I remember talking to you about it, going, it's a separate thing, was all around, it's meaningful to the people that are playing in the universes, not necessarily us. And Fox treated them that way as well. Gasker's told us this. Gasker's been Andrew Gasker, who was the franchise consultant and timeline writer for Alien and Predator and Planet of the Apes at Fox, has quite freely said this on the socials. Fox considered them completely separate entities as well. Sure. At least the last 4 years or so. And
earlier than that, you did see some some bits of branded franchises where the other character or branded pieces of media where the other franchise would appear. For example, the Rage War trilogy. You have a book branded as Alien and Predator and AVP, but they're all essentially AVP universe books. Same thing with, if we're going further back, Predator Concrete Jungle, a Predator game where aliens showed up. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened in the history of these franchises.
They make it so hard for the casual fan. I'm meant to be told this is canon, this is not, this impacts this universe, it doesn't impact this universe. Merge them. Just merge them.
I think at the end of the
problem
day,
with that is the prequels.
The conflict with the films.
They broke canon compatibility with the AVP films, unless you
I have an idea for that
gymnastics. But
I mean, at the end of the day, the casuals will think. I say casuals. I hate throwing terms around like that. I mean, you have purists who do want to keep everything separate. You know, there are people like that out there, but I think it's not casuals, because I know all probably all of us, you know, we like to consider the franchises as you know, as connected as all one universe. I mean,
there are some fans
work
that are
way
casuals, though. There are some fans that are just strictly enjoy the films, maybe pick up a comic book here and pick up a comic book there. But generally, they just enjoy the films, and then they walk into the forums, and there's all these rules regarding, you know, from somehow they've never even given it much thought that David was the creator of the alien. But, you know, they go in with AVP and they think it's all included in one universe. And then they come into the forums and they have some ideas they want to share, and they immediately get shot down. And I think it's not very open arms to new fans.
And that's honestly the main reason why I wanted. I mean, there's plenty of reasons, so I wouldn't say it's the main reason actually. But one of the primary reasons why I wanted to see Blomkamp's Alien 5, because I feel like that could have finally put to rest the whole, oh, this is canon, this isn't canon thing. And it would just be like, okay, this is a new interpretation. This is a new alternate continuity.
I don't think that would have ended that debate, though. They would have still been the same.
It would have been where
for sure. Fans would have
direction.
Fans would have their canon preference, which is what they do already. I mean, for me personally, I kind of subscribe to the AVP canon, which is the Predator films, the Alien 4 films, the original 4, and the AVP films. The prequels I just consider, and this is me personally, I know this is not the official view, it's not the official canon. Well, it is for AVP, I guess, and for Predator, because nothing in Predator and AVP contradict each other. And the director of the last Predator film even said, yeah, I consider the AVP films part of the Predator canon. So unless something directly contradicts, there's no reason not to consider that as such. So the most all-encompassing canon that doesn't contradict is Predator and AVP, because that's a total of 8 films as opposed to 6.
See,
it would be 6. It would be 6.
6 on the Alien side.
No, 6 on the Predator side as well. 4 Predator films, 2 AVP films.
Oh, you're right. I can't math. It was 6 either way. Maybe
Point invalid.
Half a dozen and one.
Oh,
6
man.
the other.
All right, this is where you guys are going to hate me, because I can fix that problem. And get your torches and pitchforks, ladies and gentlemen, because in order to fix the universe, you must create a new one. Now, oh man, I gave this
reboot.
A lot of...
He wants a reboot.
I gave
Get him
this...
out of here.
Wait. I know. The pitchforks. You guys are going to chase me right out of this podcast. And you know how much I love the original lore. I love it. But for the Alien and Predator universe to get new life and longevity, and there's so much lore that exists that I love, but in interest of giving Alien and Predator a rebirth, I would just wipe the universe clean in all forms of media. Ripley legacy, gone. Dutch legacy, gone. My love, Mike Harrigan, gone. Prometheus engineers, you're out of here. Space jockeys, you're demystified.
We have just lost every single one.
All right, hang on. Just hear me out. Predator hybrids. Well, no one liked Predator hybrids anyway.
They weren't really in it, let's be honest.
Yeah. OWLF, Wayland, all of it. I would assemble like the best writers I could get and give them all a clean slate if I was an executive. I'd give the writers...
Automatically not an executive if you're thinking like that. That's not how the system works.
Well, I'd give the writers a total fertile new playground to play in, you know, while still being true to the Alien and Predator characters, kind of like a Kevin Feige in a way, where he's juggled his own stuff. But that is important. I wouldn't change the core concepts and design of the Alien and the Predator creatures. I mean, human characters, they get old, they feel dated. But these creatures, these monsters are timeless. They're like vampires, like the Mummy, like King Kong, like Godzilla. So they would stay the same. But the rest, I think if I was in charge, I'd define it as a different universe. I'd pull the Band-Aid off quick. It would erase all that convoluted lore and create this huge Alien Predator universe. And I know it's tough, and I know people are going to hate me in the forums for saying that, but I really think it's the best thing you could do for those two franchises to start anew. I really do, because we love our Ripley, we love our 70s film, we love our 80s film Predator. But
I think you can make unrelated films that are still part of the same universe that don't have to build off the previous canon without wiping the slate clean. I think the problem with reboots that you get with especially like the Star Trek films and stuff like that is you have decades long stories by multiple storytellers and multiple venues. And when you wipe the slate, I think you can wipe the slate too clean in that it feels like you're invalidating all the hard work that all these different creatives put into the universe before. So I think you can do new stories and not have them be hinged upon the ones that came before, but at the same time not do a full reboot. I mean, we've seen this with the Dark Horse comics. They'll have like the 3 World War arc where they release a bunch of new comics that are just its own new thing that's not related to the old thing, but it still feels very much like the same universe. It doesn't feel like a reboot, even if it is kind of a soft reboot. So that would be the thing for me. It's like, if you were going to do that, do something that fits in the universe, but have it be unrelated, because that gives writers freedom to explore new things, but it also doesn't feel like you're just getting rid of this massive universe that fans have become attached to. And I think that would be true with Blomkamp's Alien 5 as well. Yeah, it probably would have made Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection not work in that continuity, but as a fan, you could choose which continuity you wanted. Do I want to think that Alien 3 happened and Resurrection, or do I want to think that Blomkamp's films happened? But the Alien universe in and of itself would be pretty much the same in either case.
When you're talking about things that people get attached to, definitely when it comes to cinema, I would say recently, nothing. I mean, you look at the reception of Prometheus and Alien Covenant and, the engineers and their involvement with us and the Predator and the autism and the hybridization. I don't think fans are really attached to what's coming out new, and I think this stuff is just hurting the franchise.
Maybe not in movies. The last 3 movies have been misfires, but in terms of novels and comics and games,
well, if you want to go movies, you go in the last 6, surely.
No, Predators I think was good.
Okay, well, not universally. Remember, I know.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, if we're really doing this, Predator, Alien, and Aliens.
Correct.
That's it.
Yep. And I just think it's tough because you guys know how much I love Predator 2. I don't want to take away the Lost Predator ship. I don't want to take away the City Hunter, but as long as you stay to the core values of the creature, like King Kong, or
let's. Adam brought up Star Trek, though he's completely wrong in that terms, because the way they did that retained the original universe and respected it. That is
not really. Fans voted Into Darkness as the worst Star Trek film of all time. Third film didn't perform that well.
Just because the film was shit, Into Darkness is quite easily the worst Star Trek film of all time. Yes, but
isn't that a new timeline?
Yes, exactly. It's an alternate universe, so it retains the original stuff still made in it, such as Picard, which is also still shit, but it still retains the original universe and continuity. But looking at like some of the other horror kind of
doesn't
things.
retain the original feel. It geared much more heavily towards action in terms of the politics and science that was
that's
the main
that's
theme.
not the point of what I'm saying.
The individual script.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that even with the reboot, the original still existed.
True, but just for me, I think once a universe gets to a point where it's that large, like Star Wars or Star Trek, you're really risking damaging your fan base if you decide to wipe the slate clean or alter things too much. I think the same could be said for Star Wars, even though it wasn't quite as a drastic a change as Star Trek before the sequel trilogy was made, when they're like, yeah, all the EU post Jedi is just gone. A lot of fans were upset by that.
Well, they have been bringing elements back in though as well. I mean, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I completely understand why Disney did what they did. But they've still then started pulling back in, those popular elements into their version, their world. So
too much in Star Wars was retreading, was pulling old into the new. If they just went new, a new imagination, new storylines, 30, 60, 100 years, 200 years in the future, I think people would have had a lot less problems with it. But I take it like the MCU. Eventually, they're going to have to stop. I mean, they're going to get rid of Iron Man. They're getting rid of Captain America, right? Or they already have. Well, no, eventually, at some point, you're going to have to start anew. Maybe you do Iron Man's daughter as Ironheart. Maybe is her name. I'm not sure.
It wasn't Adora. It was a different character.
Okay. But eventually, people are going to grow tired of it and want to go back to some of the legacy characters, maybe. And you're just going to have to start anew. Eventually.
Again, it's one of those things where I like the reboot in Star Trek because it suits the series. Again, with Marvel, that would suit the series because Marvel's always done that. It's why I always had a problem with Blomkamp's proposal as, an alternate continuity. But
how does that hurt you? How does that hurt you? The movies are still on your shelf. Those books are still on your shelf.
Hang on. But we are getting to the point where perhaps it's, a lot of Alien and Predator's contemporaries, probably more in terms of like the horror films, Friday and Halloween and what's the other one? Jason.
Nightmare on Elm
that
Street.
Is Friday. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street. They all branched off and did separate sequels that only reference a certain sequel and blah, 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 like that. Are we at this point where perhaps we need to go back and carry on from Aliens, carry on from Predator? I struggle to think that Predator would really be damaged by any of this anyway, because really they're all their own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think you could do exactly what you're talking about without making fans upset, which is, I mean, fans are always going to be upset, at least a few of them, but without making a significant portion of the fan base upset, you just make new stories in the universe that are completely unrelated to the old stories. But don't wipe the slate clean. Don't be like, okay, this whole new thing is totally different, guys. It's a new universe, because all this investment that people have put in the original universe, they're going to be like, well, I don't trust this new shit people are doing. I want what's been built over time. Like, look at the Alien RPG. There's just like a trove of this universe. People don't want to just up and throw that away for this new thing. Like, it's going to cause more trouble than it's worth. What in my opinion, and we're getting caught in the canon trap rather than just talking about what we want to see in these franchises, but in my opinion, the proper way to do it would just be to explore new parts of the universe and have sequels that did their own thing, that didn't relate to the original characters, but maintained the integrity of the universe and the creatures. And yeah, you can have different interpretations of the creatures, but as long as they're still highly recognizable as that, then I think you're fine.
Well, I think it's a lot easier to do so with the Predator. I mean, Predator, each movie feels self-contained. Alien, it's a little harder.
Alien,
I disagree with that. I think the Alien 40th anniversary shorts showed how well it could be done. None of those were related to
their shorts. Once you start getting into sequels
proof of concepts. I mean, the short for Deadpool got 2 movies made. Like, they're proof of concepts, and I think they were effective proof of concepts.
I completely agree with you in terms of that. If my ideal direction is what you suggested, in terms of films anyway. Well, I guess in terms of any story really, and that is to just conceive a story, plump it down in the timeline. You don't have to reference everything else. Alien is, to AJ's point, it is tied down by its Ripley connection. And that is a problem that a lot of the official media has done. It is a problem. It has hindered it. Things, like Out of the Shadows. That book is good in spite of its connections to Ripley, because that is a problem. And
it's not just Ripley, it's David, the Xenomorph creator.
I like it's only the creator.
Well, if you're going by Alan Dean Foster's book, the lead creator.
No, we are not getting into that.
No, we're not. Let's nip this at the bud here.
Yeah.
But these are the problems you're going to create when you're in the existing lore.
I want to talk a little simpler. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I just need to point out, if you want to understand the way that, because we're talking about there's might be a need to wipe the slate clean. I fully understand the temptation to do that. However, I would refer to a very specific book which I would recommend people get, which is Tales from Development Hell: The Greatest Movies Never Made by David Hughes. Now, that goes into exactly why the Hollywood system, you can have people with very good intentions, a fantastic script, some of the best talent available, and by the time it gets even a quarter way through the sausage machine, it has got mangled beyond all recognition. Now, you do have an example of where that has not happened, which is with Dark Horse, because they've done several reboots. The last one was the Fire and Stone thing, and they got left to their own devices, but it had some really crazy stuff in it, primarily the Deacon changing into a landmass. What the hell? There's always a danger, and now this comes to the heart of the Alien. With the Predator ones, it's because they're, as we've said, they're not too interconnected. With the Alien films, it's different. First of all, because the first one, if not the second as well, is considered a piece of cinema art. It is a classic film, like Jaws, Godfather. It is a classic piece of art. You always run the risk of whatever you replace, you better make sure it is at least up to the same quality, if not superior, because if you fail in that, people are going to go, what the hell was the point of replacing it? And they're going to want to go back to it. That's the problem the Predator had. That was meant to be a soft reboot, and people didn't like it. They said, let's go back to the original. Now,
well, that movie was just awful. I mean,
yeah, but when it comes to Alien, there is a point with it, because the problem with the Alien franchise isn't necessarily David. It's Alien 3 with a magical teleporting egg, and it is Alien Resurrection, where there's that piece of dialogue which annoys me, where it's Perez saying
the entire EU and any other possibility of something in the middle.
You cannot have another film basically where colonial marines happen to have an encounter where there's any meaningful stakes, because it has to be something which is wiped out the record and nobody else ever.
I think people just ignore it.
That's going to get bored and tiring. So with the Alien films, I can see there's a point, but I think the Blomkamp one was the ideal compromise, where they set it back just enough. But there are the problems with Alien 3 and Resurrection. But aside from that, we don't need to go there. I'd be happy just do a competent, entertaining film that doesn't trip arse over face on canon. Do it like Alien Isolation, where it's a smaller, self-contained thing which concentrates on the tension, brings back the psychosexual stuff, which Blomkamp wanted to do, bring back the Giga stuff, which again Blomkamp wanted to do. Write it well. We need something written well, but keeping in mind that whoever you choose, it's going to go through about 5 to 7 at least different writers by the end of the process, and it could get turned upside down. But if we're talking about what we, let's go. Like one of the good things about the first AVP comic, it was self-contained. It was on, how do you spell it? Ryushi, yeah. And it was its own little planet, and they talked about We've sent an SOS signal. The Marines are going to come here, but they never show up in it. It was all self-contained, and it works so well.
So much of the stories are that anyway.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yes, they are.
And especially recently as well.
That's the problem with a hard reboot, I think, is even if it's good, people are not... They're never going to hold it in the same regard as the originals. I mean, look at RoboCop. That was a reboot that I actually liked. I went to the theater not expecting much.
That's remake, though, isn't it? That's not...
I'll take your RoboCop
I guess that is
and raise you. I'll raise you Mad Max Fury Road.
Real quick. I'm not done yet. Mad Max Fury Road was an unrelated sequel. It was not a hard reboot. But
isn't the point again? This is the franchises that we're in. Mad Max's stories are the point of perhaps Mad Max wasn't one guy, or perhaps they're all just tales. It's that barroom mentality.
But when you look at Alien, you're looking at who created man, the engineers. You know, who created the xenomorph. You've constricted yourself so much with these films.
With the prequels, I will admit that I felt like their interpretations of the jockey as well as the alien origins really constricted the universe, and that's why I have to kind of, fans have their ways of dealing with that, be it someone else created the engineers or David recreated the alien. So I don't think new films need to be tied to those interpretations. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just, and maybe we're kind of like just doing semantics here in terms of we want the
canon
thing.
And continuity and
this is part of my future for the universe, but you have to look at it this way. One day it will be too old. The Predator 1987 film will be too old. Alien will be too old.
How do you mean it will be too old?
Well,
because
I mean, if
they
you
still work as stories,
they'll still work. But 50 years down the road, I mean, it's I won't go as far as King Kong 1933, which is a great film, by the way, if anyone's checked it out, if they're afraid of a black and white film. But eventually, I do think that you have to...
They age really well. That's the thing. With
I don't
Aliens
think,
and Predator,
you're never going to have...
Well. Predator 2 is definitely very 1990s.
Take the dagger out of my heart.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a very 1990s film, however you feel about it. But Alien and Aliens, they will still be getting rewatched 30 years from now.
I think...
I knew this was going to be controversial.
There's got to be a point to replacing them. If you're just replacing them for replacement's sake,
let me get this out here, okay? Fans are just attached to this franchise, and I feel like Alien and Predator are like Star Wars. Not to the same level of popularity, obviously, but they have a built, established universe over multiple decades, and you're never going to see a reboot of Star Wars. They're never going to be like, okay, guys, here's new Star Wars. It's just always going to build upon the universe. They might do completely new stories in that universe that focus on characters we've never seen.
Your problem is you're looking at a confine. Imagine if Star Wars is about one character. Maybe the movie was called Luke Skywalker, okay? And you already know his origin. You already know so much what's happened to him. Star Wars is so much bigger than the xenomorph.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying Star Wars, I'm talking about the integrity of the franchise, not focusing on a character. I'm just saying, I don't know exactly what you're asking for here with what you want for the Alien universe, but in terms of wiping the slate clean, that's the kind of the kind of wording that gets me a little nervous as a fan, because
I know. It was a lot of soul searching for this, but I hated it. You'll see me in the forums say, no way we could keep the existing lore and stuff. But the more I thought about this, once I pulled the Band-Aid off and said, okay, we still have our original universe, I get excited with the idea of all this fertile ground, that if someone correct in charge that can control over this can broaden this alien, not Alien versus Predator universe, but Alien Predator universe, this APU, and just create this whole universe of this and still keep the integrity of the creatures. And I just get excited over it, and I see all the potential over it. And I think all of us will come back for that. It's not going to alienate we're going to get pissed off
if it's done well. Yeah. The danger is basically the old proverb about, is it wise to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Now, that's why I personally am the kind of person who regards all the comics, all the games, all the books. They're nice little what ifs, but I don't regard them as canon. The only things I regard as canon are the films. And I think, fine, if you're talking about just rebooting all the books and that, because that's what Dark Horse has already done repeatedly. It wouldn't be new. But if you're talking about just Disney saying, like they did with Star Wars, okay, what we've got, all the Fire and Stone stuff, even that's no longer relevant. I don't think anyone is going to be upset. It's when you start saying we are going to remake Alien. You could do it. Alien is a film where you could remake, potentially superior, but it would need very, very, very talented people to do it and be left to.
I think remaking Alien is not what I'm saying. You wouldn't remake Alien.
But then you're not chucking it out.
Yeah, what would be the point then of a brand?
I think you're right with the throwing the baby out with the bathwater, Eric. I think we can do exactly what you're talking about, Voodoo, but not wipe the slate clean at the same time. You can have it be compatible, but have it be totally new at the same time.
Just some other corner of the galaxy.
I think the problem is when you plan a new universe, it never works out.
Yeah, don't plan with sequels in mind. Just make your story.
It's like Universal tried to do with the Dark Universe with the Mummy films, right? Like, hey guys, we have a new franchise planned. That's not how it works. It never works out when you make a movie with the intention of making a franchise.
Well, even
now, when you
Alien and
have
Predator.
a franchise that is naturally developed, like Alien and Predator, you can build on that and make new sequels. But I feel like if you're starting fresh and you're like, we're going to do this new franchise, it almost never works out. You have to make a movie with the right intentions. And with Alien and Predator, I feel like the strongest, newest stories will be made by people who really respect those originals.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's not just, I think, franchise, it's ongoing arc as well. So, Prometheus was made with the intent of it being 2 films. Covenant was made with the intent of another 4 or 6 films. The Predator was made with the intent of another 3 films or some bollocks like that. Even when it comes to these films, even when we are going to pick a corner of the galaxy and make a new self-contained film, make it a self-contained story.
Yeah.
Like the Predator.
Even you look at something else which isn't AVP. The Terminator films. Terminator 1 was made with the intention of it being its own little. It's literally a self-contained loop of a story. Terminator 2, they did it because it's successful, but Cameron was passionate for that story. He realised you could do a third, but that wasn't his intention. And then I think from the third one onwards, they were doing it like an executive. Let's just do stories and slap a Terminator label on it. They weren't passionate about getting a story right, making it done competently. And that's the whole weird, and like especially The Predator, that was very much done with the intent of it being a so-called flagpole blockbuster thing, instead of just trying to make a good Predator film, which I think where Predators, I think they tried to just make a good Predator film. And I think it's not universally loved, but people can see that, they can appreciate it's done with that in mind. AVP, the first one of those, was very much done with it being the script is literally done what happens next in AVP Annihilation. And it's
back to Predators, even Predators was left in a cliffhanger.
Semi cliffhanger. I mean, you had a resolution even if they were still stuck on the planet. I do think, I think you make a good point there, Eric. I feel like, and maybe this wasn't the case initially with The Predator, but it became a film that felt like it was made by committee, whereas Predators felt like, even if they had some universe things they had to adhere to, Fox was like, okay, troublemaker, you make this movie. We trust you. And they did. Whereas The Predator, it was a lot of second guessing and a lot of and I think that always hurts movies. It hurt the Thing prequel. But I want to get to a lighter topic, gentlemen, if we're all done with this one. I want to move to, I'll let you finish, Aaron, but I want to move to the short term. I want us to talk about in the next few years what we would want to see from these franchises.
Has AJ finished?
All right. I'll finish up. Look, what did I say in the beginning? Get your torches and pitchforks, right? I knew it was going to be a controversial statement. I knew you guys were going to hate me afterwards, but it was just honestly thinking in terms of the future with this universe and to grow it. But yeah, I'll do one more. My last phase will be expand the new universe. Okay. And basically, within all forms of television, film, comic books, they need to expand it, and you don't simply I wouldn't simply look at characters. To me, that would almost be small thinking in this universe. I would give characters their own line, like a predator in the vein of Ahab. I would make him a full character and give him his own comic series, or an AI that's designed to hunt down the xenomorphs. Give her her own series, her own serialized story, and just don't stop there. If you guys have ever watched movies like John Carpenter's The Thing, and you say to yourself, oh yeah, I could see that happening in that Alien or Predator universe, I could see that existing. Do that. Expand the universe design. Expand into new, interesting, and horrific creatures, and let them exist in that Alien Predator universe. Give them their own writer, give them their own book, their own comic series, and it will draw current followers already invested in the Alien and Predator universe, but it will also interest new readers in checking out this brand new monster.
So Covenant, basically.
Yeah, and well, no, that's still Covenant still involved the xenomorph. I mean,
it was essentially about the neomorphs, and they tried to do a spin-off. That's what
in Blumhouse, it's like a Blumhouse production. This could be something of the Alien universe, but cultivate new creatures and stuff like that. And for that, it would draw in good writers too, the ones that avoid stale existing products. The ability to create something new within that universe, that exists within that universe, that doesn't have to run into a xenomorph or a predator, at least not for years down the road. I think the possibilities are exciting.
Love that.
Yay!
Well, I think that's what the Alien RPG does so well, is it really presents how expansive the universe can be, and it can go beyond the creatures of just Alien and the things we know from the Alien films. I mean, it presents all these different space politics in the Alien RPG, and we just did 2 podcasts on the RPG, and it just really does an effective job of immersing you in the universe and showing you how big and expansive it can be beyond your initial perceptions of the Alien franchise, if you want to get in that deep like we do. So yeah, I see what you're saying, Voodoo, and I do want to see fresh new takes on Alien and Predator. I think yes, you can guide down to wanting to recapture those originals rather than exploring new avenues in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
My only concern would be, don't throw out the universe. Like Eric said, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Keep the universe, go new places in the universe.
Consider this a separate phase. So,
the only qualifier I would say to that is what you've described as essentially what I've said in the recent past. It needs to go in that direction, but that works better not as a film but as a streaming or TV show, because that works as an episodic format, I would say.
I think you could do that with anything, basically. My hold up on that stuff is again in the branding. So do you abandon, and again, Ridley talked about it, do you abandon Alien in the title and perhaps do like what they do with the Star Trek fan films? Excelsior, a Star Trek fan production. Do you do something different with these and go Prometheus, an Alien universe story? And then you can just do what the fuck you want, because with Covenant, I would have preferred a film that was purely neomorphs. Don't shoehorn the alien in at the end of it. Give me a film about the neomorphs. The thing that got me so obsessed with the expanded universe was my desire not to learn more about the aliens, but to learn more about the space jockeys. It's the branding. There are so many elements of the Alien series that aren't the Alien. There's the corporate intrigue of Wayland Yutani, and the ancient space history and sort of Lovecraftian nature of the space jockeys. There is more to the universe, and we can go further out there. AJ, you mentioned the Thing. I like to think of Species as being some sort of SIL, being like an engineer weapon, space jockey weapon that's transmitted out there, and when a culture gets advanced enough to pick it up and recreate it, and it then wipes that culture out, keeping them not a threat to the space jockeys. There are so many Giga-esque and Alien-esque, and I don't really apply this to Predator just because I think Predator's so flexible as it is anyway. But in terms of alien stuff, yes, I would love to see that. I would love to see a book that was purely on the neomorphs, or something else that the engineers had created, some other, I don't know, maybe a caretaker species, or maybe they are, maybe the engineers did find and base their stuff on the space jockeys as they are. There is more to that universe, and I would love to see it explored.
But I mean, you're saying that I don't think in that capacity there would be a problem with calling it alien, because you come back to then the Dan O'Bannon's original concept. Alien essentially was not about the creature alien, but it was about a whole host of things which are alien to us. You could then say it's about an alien galaxy, an alien universe as a whole. You can still call it alien, but it doesn't have to have a familiar creature in it.
I think Drew also mentioned that when he was talking about doing things in the RPG as well. It's not necessarily alien with a capital A as much as alien, but I do think it would be a fight to escape that branding, because the alien
audience associates it with when you're trying to sell it as a film. But if you're trying to sell it as a TV show or a comic series, then, as I say, you've got an episodic format which the audience already knows can deal with different things in any single story.
I think it'd still face the same, at least initially, same sort of hang-ups. Yeah, I think
subtitle Alien and Predator universe, or Alien Predator universe, and then still in the big words, on a comic book cover, issue number 1.
No, I mean, if we're going with the subtitle rather than alien cell.
Yeah, we take that out of it. Just Alien Predator universe and small subtitle.
I think that would work best personally, and I would very much like to see something like that. There is more to Alien than the Alien.
And I like, Aaron, you were mentioning about rebranding again, in terms of Alien. I always, I've mentioned before in the forums, like how Superman became Man of Steel and Batman became the Dark Knight. I'd reassign project names, different forms in different medias as well. I mean, Alien could become, quote unquote, the perfect organism. And the Predator could become, quote unquote, the hunter,
I genuinely don't think it as much as a problem for the Predator. I don't think it's got the same sort of hold-ups. I think Predator is so fucking flexible as just as it sits.
Let's just go back and call it Star Beast, the hunter.
Well, I'm saying Batman had no problem as well. I mean, you had Batman Begins and you followed it up with The Dark Knight,
That's true, yes.
So I'd welcome all of this, just the freshening up, but the expansion of the universe. And that's why it led to me rebranding, versus Alien versus Predator, again, was so constricting. And I would just Alien Predator universe and then expand it in all different forms, all different types of creatures. And there's got to be writers out there. What? I could create my own monster, that would be excited to do that in novel form, in comic book form. And maybe if it's really cool enough, that something like that would make it to a film, or a television series or something, if there's such a strong reaction to it, and it's still part of this big Alien Predator universe. Man, I'd be so excited with that.
Have you got any more? I feel like you've got 1,000, but you don't want to go there.
I think I could see Adam getting frustrated. So
because he wants his turn so bad. He wants his turn so bad.
No, it's just it's not about me wanting my turn. I like Yeah, this just, for me, this feels like a canon discussion. Whereas like the premise of this podcast was like, let's talk about what we want to see coming up soon.
And that's exactly what I'd want to see, though.
I just think that's like too big to really feasibly pull off. Like, Disney's never going to take a risk like that. They're just not.
Yeah, but remember, this doesn't have to be a prediction we're gonna do. This is what we want to see. If you want to base yours on a realistic thing, which I will be doing as well myself, but no, I even if I agreed with one of its points, I really enjoyed.
Oh no! Don't let me kill your vibe, Voodoo. Like, you make some good points, and I do feel like the stories can be tied down. Like Eric said, I'm just concerned with the throwing the baby out with the bathwater in terms of, because I've seen universes just try and wipe the slate clean before, and I've never seen it work.
But we'll move on. We've discussed this.
We'll move on.
Because it does feel like, yes, we are going to get trapped in this canon continuity loop.
Yeah.
So, Adam, with your cheery, 2-3 year plan, come on. What do you want?
Some more alcohol first. Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, the last 3 films have been misfires, right? And do we all agree on that?
No.
Not
you don't
what
think
they should have been.
You wouldn't call Covenant a misfire?
I think in comparison to the classics, yes.
Yeah, well, nothing's going to live up to the classics. I'm talking a solid, satisfying Alien or Predator film.
I'd agree with that.
For me, Prometheus and the Predator, yes.
Okay.
But you know I stand by the Covenant.
So I'm conflicted
about Prometheus.
I'm conflicted about the prequels because on one hand, I'm like, please, Ridley, just leave it alone. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, there were some cool things to come out of the prequels. Friends like Clara, like Jamie, that really like the prequels. And I'm like, that kind of would suck if they were left on this cliffhanger from Covenant and that story was not, Ridley has always sold this as tying into the back end of Alien. And if we never got to see that ultimate completion of that, regardless of how I feel of whatever insane ideas Ridley would throw into the third prequel, that would kind of always feel like this loose end that just never got tied up. And maybe it shouldn't be, but I think there's quite a few fans of the prequels that would be disappointed if it wasn't. Ridley has mentioned he's in talks with Disney about, that's in discussion, I think is what he said. So we'll see if that happens. Honestly, for me, I'd be fine either way. Complete the prequel trilogy or don't. It's not going to change my opinion about the prequels either way. I honestly hope he does make David the space jockey in the third one, just so people can write the prequels off like I do. But okay, moving away from the prequels.
That's vindictive. That's some vindictive bullshit right there.
Hey,
moving away from the prequels.
This is the future of AVP. So
I do think that the point I was getting to was Alien and Predator haven't been satisfying for a while for me in terms of the movies. So for me, the movies for Alien and Predator, let's take a break from those. The expanded universe, still, it feels like we're in a second golden age. Now, that's kind of shaken a bit with the transition from Dark Horse to Marvel. So we'll see what happens with Marvel. I really hope they deliver some awesome stories next year of all 3 franchises. They were doing really good with the lineup for the first omnibus, but the whole controversy with the art thievery. Let's have that be the last episode of that, please. But as long as the stories are solid, if they put together good collections, if they tell new stories with good writers and good artists, I'm really looking forward to what they do with that. I think Titan deserves to keep the license for who knows how long. I think they've been great with their stories. Just fix the covers, please.
Yeah.
Just fix the covers, please. But I think they've been stronger than any of the other publishers that have ever held the license. That's not to say I haven't liked the stuff that came out from Bantam or DH Press. I did. Those are some of my favorite books. But I feel like...
I got it. DH Press had some of your favorite books.
Yeah. A couple.
Which?
I've got DNA War, as well as... I honestly liked Forever Midnight, man. I know you fucking hated it. Maybe I need to read it again, but I remember really liking it.
Oh, I forgot about the Predator side. Yes, South China Sea and Turnabout were fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, those are DH Press as well.
Yeah, but...
I'm just saying, Titan has built up... Let's not get too hung up on that. Titan has built the best track record, I would say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think even the books that shouldn't have been good, the first three were good in spite of why they shouldn't have been good.
Yeah. Not to mention they've gone beyond novels. They're releasing a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, a cookbook coming out, a lot of...
yeah, Rinslow's stuff is fucking fantastic.
And hopefully Voodoo, we will see the Predator archives. Yeah. That's been only mentioned in one of their upcoming pressers, but we haven't really heard it. It's supposed to come out in November, according to that, but we've heard nothing about it.
Little. Yeah, and I actually messaged the writer, and he hasn't responded to me. So
it's not been officially announced. So
keep Titan doing their thing. Like, a lot of people wanted another Alex White book. We're getting one next year. That's awesome. We have a prequel to the Alien game coming out. That's awesome. So I feel like Predator and Alien right now are very strong in their expanded media. The Predator game I've really been enjoying, even though it could still use some tuning up. But I want to see that be a live service thing. I want Hunting Grounds to have a sustainable community for at least 2 to 3 years with frequent content updates. And I want it to have like this journey of a game to get people who might not have been as into Predator into the franchise.
But maybe I got the podcast nature wrong. I mean, what is your feeling towards AVP, right? Isn't the future, unless I'm taking this literally.
It's not just AVP, it's everything. Basically.
I'm getting to
everything.
Yeah. I'm getting to, well, I can understand your confusion because that was our original.
Yeah, that's what you and I
thought the podcast was initially, Aaron, which was, where do we want AVP to go? Because it's been like, I feel like...
Well, no, okay, so this was...
So we had a big misunderstanding.
Yeah, when it was Alien / versus /
But originally, when I gave you this podcast idea, I said AVP.
Oh, did you mean specifically AVP?
I meant specifically AVP because Alien and Predator have gotten all this attention. We've gotten next to nothing on the AVP side, right? Like we have the occasional occasional. Where did I get that word from? The occasional collectibles. But the last major releases we've had with AVP was Rage War Trilogy. We've had a couple comics, and it's been good to see that come back with the final one from Dark Horse, Thicker Than Blood. But really, comparing the amount of media releases of AVP to Alien and Predator, it's been minuscule, and maybe that's how it should be, I guess. But it felt like it used to be a little bit more often. We would get AVP stuff with the novels and comics and games. Maybe that's just how I'm remembering it. Yeah. But as far as Alien and Predator goes, I think it's time for a break for the movies. Let Predator do its thing with Titan. Titan's still doing way more Alien books than Predator, and maybe Alien's just more popular than Predator. But I think they could up the Predator book count. Give us a sequel to If It Bleeds. I want another anthology story with Predator.
And we know Brian had been trying to do that. Yeah. He's talked about that openly.
Let him do it. I would love to see another Predator anthology book.
And as I understand it, the first one did actually sell really well.
Yeah. As far as Alien, let's see what Noah Hawley can do. I think Alien is ripe for a series. I think we should see an Alien series in the near future. Have it be a Hulu streaming thing. Have it be maybe something like American Horror Story, where you focus on a single group of characters for one season and move on to another group for the next season. But I think that's
not
where
with the same cast, though.
I would not with the same cast. That would be too weird, like American Horror Story does. And let me know if I'm just rambling here. If you guys want to interject, go for it. But
I think we'll feel free to interject where we need to, mate. Don't you worry about that.
But so with Alien, I want to see a series. If you want to let Scott finish his prequel, let him finish his prequel. But let's get to it already. Like, if that's going to happen, let's do it and get it over with.
See, as much as I like Covenant, I know you like to take the piss out of me for this one. I don't like it when the aliens get involved. So I enjoy it as Neomorph Covenant or David Covenant, not Alien Covenant. And I really do not trust Scott to finish off these prequels. I think he would think that David being the engineer, the space jockey in Alien is a fucking stroke of genius that nobody would ever expect come in. I fully expect him to do that. I fully expect the cargo of the derelict to be the egg-morphed colonists of the Covenant, and I loathe that idea. I think I would probably quit the website if that's
you want Covenant to be the last of the Scott prequels.
I don't want Scott's creative narrative involvement in the series anymore. I don't trust him. Would I trust somebody else to maybe continue with David's story? Yes, because I like David. I genuinely love David, even in Covenant. I know a lot of people tend to think he got too Bond villain-esque, but I dug it.
I think he had some nuance to him in Prometheus, and I think he became a bit too evil villain in Covenant.
See, I don't agree. I still liked him in Covenant.
You agree with me on that, Eric? Did I see you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I agrry with you.
It's fine. You're allowed to be wrong. But
it's okay, Aaron. Nobody's perfect.
to that point, I would rather see somebody else continue the prequels, or we do just drop them. I think the points you've mentioned earlier of just plopping a self-contained thing somewhere and doing it as a soft reboot is actually my preferred method if we're doing it theatrically. But I really do agree on the idea of we take Alien. I don't know about Predator, but we take Alien and we do long-form storytelling with it. You know, Noah, while we don't know much about his proposed plan, you know, he had the mentality of, you know, we make this good without the aliens.
Focus on the characters, yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't focus on the characters. It was we make it good without the aliens, and then we give them aliens. So, you know, that's something that I think the series has missed lately, outside of David. You know, we don't have those memorable characters from the first two films in the later stuff.
I enjoyed the cast from Prometheus. Covenant, not so much.
The cast, not the characters.
Yeah, true. That's fair.
Agreed with both Covenant and Prometheus.
I did not like the cast in Covenant. So,
see, I love Danny McBride in Covenant, and I suppose and a lot of the and a lot of the cast, but the characters wise, they didn't really have terribly much going for them. You know, they weren't Brett, they weren't Parker, they weren't Hudson, Vasquez. So with
they weren't memorable, they were more generic.
Yeah.
So with Noah having this mentality of, you know, it being an interesting thing, the characters being interesting, I think is brilliant. If we have this longer form storytelling, you know, it does give more room to properly develop the plot points, properly develop some of the mysteries or some of the other angles of the universe. And that is genuinely the direction I would like to see it take, because it would be like a bunch of limited comic series, you know. We do a season on this thing, we do a season on that thing, we go all over the place. That, and especially given, you know, the last season of Game of Thrones withstanding, you know, television has been, there's been some truly satisfying series as lately that aren't, you know, they aren't the old 26 season episodes of Star Trek where you've got a bunch of fluff in them, you know, to pad out the time.
You know, it's a different format now. It's a much bigger budget. It's giving Hollywood theatrical productions, I wouldn't say just a run for its money, but it's beating them. Like Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, like all these streaming services are really, they're the main competitors for Hollywood films now, and I think they can coexist. They don't have to be competitors, but
well, you know, how many Star Wars fans do you know that you see, you know, splooshing over Mandalorian compared to the last 6 films. So I think that is the way I would like to see Alien go, and I think there's a good chance that we will see Alien go that way. The reason that Noah Hawley's thing didn't get made was because was it Emma Watts stopped it? Emma Watts isn't there anymore. And Disney is seeing success with The Mandalorian. So I think that is a reasonable sort of hope for a future direction for Alien.
I think it'll be a good home. I do think a large portion of the fan base is growing older. There was an interesting article about...
Don't remind me.
There was an interesting article talking about the Predator, how incredibly successful the Predator was in the United Kingdom on, I guess, video on demand or Sky TV, or I'm not sure how it works over there. That
it was The Predator, wasn't it?
The Predator, yeah. That did extremely well. That there was this huge, impressive numbers that they didn't come out to the theaters for, but they were excited to see it at home. And it ties in, I think, to a large portion of this fan base.
Keep in mind that's a lot cheaper. When people go to the cinema, it's generally a lot more expensive. So
well, I think that's going to be getting to AJ's point. Is in how people like to watch this stuff from home now.
Yeah, I think, and I think I have read some articles that going to the theaters has become a young woman sport, and because a large portion of the fan base is getting older, they'll actually sit and watch these movies at home. Yeah, the cost to lay down a few bucks to risk on a movie as well. But the ones that are really diehard with this franchise, the ones that love the originals, the ones from the 70s and the 80s and stuff. The new stuff, I don't think is really creating much in new fans, not as much as if these were great films. And and I think that has an effect. So I think Alien and Predator could be really successful on streaming television and reach that audience that might not be going to the theater. And
I think numbers. Even with theatrical releases, just the nature of how this pandemic has gone, you saw the tension between Universal and I think it was AMC, which is the largest movie theater chain in the United States. And they came to a compromise where Universal could release a new film, like let's say the third Jurassic World film in theaters. 3 weeks later, it's on video on demand. So the exclusivity windows are going to be shortened, and theaters are going to have to compete by making a night out experience, like a premium night out experience where you get dinner, you get drinks, and you enjoy a movie there with your date or whatever. But more and more like theatrical movies are going to be released on streaming services, so no, you don't have to do a show, and you could definitely do an Alien movie released on streaming services for sure.
Well, that's kind of going to be one of my sort of hopes as well.
Well, let me wrap up mine real quick because I have a couple more things. So I want to see another game from Rebellion, right?
Oh yes,
because
they are the granddaddies of AVP.
They are the granddaddies of AVP. They were one of the original creators beyond the first comics. And for multiple generations, as far back as the Atari Jaguar, then on PC, then on... Well, I guess I didn't realize this, Aaron, but the Super Nintendo AVP was actually the first AVP game. It was before the Jaguar version, yeah.
The Jaguar one was meant to have been...
I thought the Jag, yeah.
I thought it was as well, but it's not. I looked it up. Super Nintendo AVP.
Oh, you've already done the research, have you?
Yeah.
This is surprising. Enjoy this, guys.
But Rebellion are still the granddaddies because they did the first major PC release in the first-person game. And the first game where you could play as all three of the species. So it's been 10 years since they did AVP 2010, which I think was a fantastic game, has aged well graphically. I think it may have come up a bit short with some receptions, probably because funding was tight, given the situation with Colonial Marines.
Well, there was a whole drama around that, wasn't it? I mean, Sega was sinking funds into Colonial Marines and Crucible, and then they picked up AVP when Vivendi was sold. So, and it was a case of we push this game out. We need to recoup the costs from these two Alien games that aren't going anywhere. So yeah,
that
around
the game I think was harmed by some of the business drama going on at the time. Unfortunately, I think now with the new console generation launching, it would be a perfect time to bring Rebellion back and create a new game in the series. I don't know if you've seen, Aaron, but Rebellion has actually set up their first digital film studio in the UK, like all digital film studio, which uses the same technology as The Mandalorian, where they create these big virtual sets with these 360-degree screens running the Unreal Engine in real time. And they can create these amazing virtual / practical sets. Like, can you imagine if they made a new AVP game with live action cutscenes, just like they did in the original computer game, but filmed with that new technology?
And even using that for like short films as well, or a proper series like Mandalorian.
Yeah. So give Rebellion, let Rebellion have like an AVP anthology series. Like you could do a live action series that would tie into a new game or something. Maybe, I don't know if that would be a bit much, but whatever it is, give Rebellion AVP. Just give it to them. Let them do something with it.
Mate,
so that's one thing.
Another developer,
because they are the granddaddies.
Yeah, but that's nostalgia. There could be better options. I wouldn't say only allow Rebellion. I would say whoever the hell is best.
I would say give Monolith another chance, but they seem dead set on just making Lord of the Rings games forever. They're done with horror, but
it doesn't need to be someone who has made one before. It can be another developer.
That's true. I think
Rebellion.
It could be a new developer like Ubisoft. I think they showed they care about the Predator with their little mission for Ghost Recon Wildlands. If they were going to do a full Predator game, I would love to see that as well.
Especially in the veins of Ghost Recon as well. Yeah. You know, Predator is begging for an open world game.
Simulator.
See, this goes back to, though, I love what you guys are saying. I really do. But it goes back to, will they greenlight a budget for what you're saying?
I think they're much more likely to greenlight things like video games, like comics, like novels. The expanded universe is going to be where it's at right now for the franchises. I think the movies have not performed well enough that they will take a break on those, with the exception of maybe a third AVP movie, and this is what I was going to get to. It's been long enough. The last one came out in 2007. That I think you could do a third AVP movie, have it be in the future around the Aliens time, have it be unrelated to the first two. I would like to see that. Maybe release it on streaming, maybe do theatrical. I don't care. I just want a complete trilogy with that, even if the third film's completely unrelated to the first two.
It wouldn't financially. They would do an Alien and then a Predator, and then if they're financially successful, then merge them is what they would do. Yeah. They wouldn't take. And right now,
Resurrection wasn't successful. It wasn't that successful.
Yeah, but as of right now, if you're talking about AVP, you've got like a much bigger budget that you would need for an AVP film.
Yeah, you have to remember that AVP has been solid. You know, back then, the concept wasn't solid on a theatrical level. It was a spectacle that got continually sort of shit on a little bit as we got further towards it, but it was still a spectacle. Now it wouldn't be.
Yeah, but from studio executive, that's how studio executives would think.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. Is the
I agree with Eric.
They would build, they would plant that seed in the garden, seed in the garden, see if it's resonant, because they would look purely in terms of financial. They wouldn't look at it in terms of fans.
Exactly.
Well, the first AVP film
needs to prove it's still worthy of that mashup.
The first
we know there's a demand for it if it's competent, like a competent Alien or Predator film. But studio executives, they wouldn't think of it. They would think of it in terms of like Marvel, Avengers Endgame, where they've got to do individual characters first, whereas they could just do EVP and then lead into Alien and Predator separately, but they wouldn't think like that.
Yeah, perhaps. But I do think AVP 1 performed well enough that it has to have been mentioned somewhere behind the scenes. AVP 2 internationally, I think did okay. It had such a low budget that even though it didn't perform as well as they were probably hoping, it wasn't a flop. It wasn't the success the first AVP movie was.
But they look at the rates. Executives look at the rate of growth or the rate of decline. I mean, they like Prometheus.
But they also look at nostalgia. They want to bank on nostalgia, especially
There
these
is
days.
no nostalgia for AVP because of those films.
Well, there is outside of the films, which is why I think you should draw on the games and the comics with a third film.
Well, I mean, they might look at sales of Alien Isolation, and we do know that kind of budget they consider as a disappointment, considering the sales versus what they spent. Now, who knows what it's going to be with Hunting Grounds? But Hunting Grounds is a cheaper game. It's going to be in relation to cost spent, and I don't know if they're going to see an avenue with that. That's why they're not making a sequel to Covenant. They saw such a box office decline between Prometheus and Alien Covenant. They even lowered the budget because Prometheus guys just barely broke even.
Yeah.
But that was before the outbreak. Right now, the outbreak, a film like an Alien film, Disney has lost billions from their theme parks closing. Now, we will not see even a hint of an Alien production for, I would say, possibly 3 years at minimum.
Maybe.
We are just not going to see it with the finances the way they are at the moment.
Well, not
you
with
might
the finances.
See something with films. But that's if you assume Disney are going to do something like an Alien film as shorts, they might or they might not.
And here's another wish list thing for me now that you're bringing up the finances. You can do an effective Alien film on a much smaller budget, I think.
Yes.
And the studio I would love to see handle that is Blumhouse. They make horror films that make stupid amounts of money. On very, very low budgets. And they've expressed interest in making an Alien film. I don't know how apt Disney would be to work with them since they typically work for Universal, which is a main competitor of Disney. But if they could produce an Alien film, I would love to see it.
I think they'd keep that in-house, though. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like comics going over to Marvel. It doesn't matter.
Maybe. I mean, the fact that it's an R-rated property is kind of new ground for Disney. They may want to outsource something like that.
I still think they're going to use studios for their R-rated properties.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like Blumhouse is a studio.
Yeah. No, as in Fox 20th Century Studios.
Right, but I mean, there's a difference between a production company and like multiple production companies. I mean, like 20th Century Fox produced Predators, but it was made by Troublemaker Studios. So they would still produce an Alien film, but it would be made by Blumhouse, is what I'm saying.
That was Fox. Disney management, I think, wants to keep everything under the same roof.
Maybe
direct control.
Maybe they do. This is just like a wish list thing.
Yeah. Agreed. Yes.
So I'm going to go now.
You go.
I'm going to go. So you mentioned doing shorts and other things. So what I would love to see is those other things. Now, I've recently been on a kick rewatching the Starship Troopers films. And ever since I've been a kid, I've had the Roughneck Chronicles, the animated show that they did for Starship Troopers, and The Spirit Within, the Final Fantasy thing. And you've heard me talk about, everybody's heard me talk about this before. I want an animated Alien or Predator or Alien versus Predator thing. Whether that be a short, we know shorts work. The anniversary shorts proved this. And to the point of it being a realistic kind of thing, we know that somebody has made an AVP anime.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe I didn't think of that yet. Give us the anime already.
I want that anime, or I want other animes. I think AVP and Predator particularly suit doing animated things, because you can go again, because of how flexible I think the Predator series is, you could do so many fucking weird styles with Predator. I'm a big fan of Halo as well. Halo apes on Alien and Predator, and Halo has done a series of animated things called Halo Legends, and it was all different styles of animation. Are you
talking about like the Animatrix did?
Like Animatrix as well.
Completely different style. Yeah.
So I think Predator would be ripe for something like that, just showing off all these different styles, to show off the different tones that Predator could work in, the different situations that Predator could work in, the different narratives that Predator could work in, because I do think it is incredibly flexible, and I don't think this has been realized enough yet. The comics, yes, they've definitely done it, and I think If It Bleeds was a good way of showing it as well. But I want to see that in moving images, and animation in particular, I think would be perfect for Predator. AVP, I think, again, going back to Starship Troopers, the last 2 Starship Troopers films they've done have been animated ones, as in CG.
Talking about Traitor of Mars
and Invasion. Yeah. And I was watching those, and I was just going, why have they still not done an Alien versus Predator or Aliens like this?
Yeah. A semi-realistic but still stylized CG anime would be an awesome fit. I think of, me, another franchise I really love is Resident Evil, and they've done 3 Resident Evil animated films that are actually part of the canon, unlike the live-action Mila Jovovich films that a lot of fans were disappointed with. And now they've just announced a new Resident Evil series, also part of the game's canon, that Netflix is doing. And so I would love to see that type of animation with Alien and Predator, but we know, like you said, Aaron, well, we don't know, but from what we've heard, the anime is complete. Like, it's ready to be released as far as we know. It's just a licensing issue.
Yeah.
Won't
So
ever
the boring
get
legalities.
released.
I thought it
It's
wasn't
not-
complete.
No, it's complete, but the problem is Disney won't. They are not going to see it financially viable enough to buy, and
Well,
Netflix don't have the rights to sell it. It is going to remain in limbo
it's a licensing issue.
So
It
maybe
is
you can
never
refresh
going to
my memory. I thought it was going to be a series of episodes, and they only completed 2 or 3 of them.
It was one single sort of film.
It was a short film.
Far
Okay.
as we
It was a full season. It was kind of like,
it was a series.
well,
Then. I heard it was
Why
a
wouldn't they
film.
release it then?
Because Disney owns the copyright.
and Netflix is the main competitor
Disney
to Disney.
bought Fox. It was a
Netflix.
Fox thing. Because when Disney bought Fox, that was when they were going to start bringing out their own streaming service. So as soon as that's why they took all the Marvel stuff. Oh, no, actually, Netflix did it themselves. But that's why Disney is trying to bring all the Marvel stuff in-house to their own streaming service now. They would see Netflix as a competitor, and they think, why should we allow them to make money off of something we own?
But if
The only thing I could think of is an exception is if it was already paid for and made, and it's a more adult property, they wouldn't want to release that on Disney Plus. They might want to release it on Hulu, but if Netflix paid for it, then it's like, what the hell do you do?
And you got to imagine Disney gets a portion of the proceeds when that's
for sure.
Yeah. So if it's already in the can, it just doesn't make sense not to release it.
Because they are denying a competitor profit. They would release it under their own stuff, but Disney would not see any point in spending money on buying it when they could just make another one themselves.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, when I bring up the anime, I mean to say that at least Fox went there, so I would like to see Disney go there.
Yeah, but if something's been made, I want to see it.
Especially
for the sake that the artists who worked on it, like, their work's never going to be seen. Like, that's got to feel bad.
That's how Hollywood is, though. Unfortunately,
that's
Do
true.
we have any other examples out there of shows in the can that never been released?
I'm sure there's a few. The Tremors series.
There is, yeah.
The Tremors series. They filmed the first episode and just scrapped it. They never released the series.
They aired some of that, I'm pretty sure. But I know
Well, there was
one thing that they did.
There was multiple Tremor series.
You remember the Kate Beckinsale and Hugh Jackman Van Helsing film?
Yeah.
They did a pilot episode and a limited version of that as a TV show. Apparently, it had nothing whatsoever to do with the film. It was just called Van Helsing, but that never got released. That never saw the light of day. There's
Pilots all the time.
Yeah,
pilots all the time don't get released. I remember that Wonder Woman pilot that actually got leaked on the internet, but a full series with episodes.
I mean, we don't really know the scale of it. So when they say full series, maybe it was,
we're just basing this on the reporting by Perfect Organism.
Yeah, it's I mean, we've since, we know it existed, we know it was finished. To the details exactly of it, We don't know.
No, I mean, honestly, for me, it would depend. Like, I'm not a big fan of anime because a lot of it is very style over substance. However, I do really like what Netflix did with Castlevania. That was a really nice anime.
Oh, speaking of Netflix, Love, Death, Robots as well. Another perfect example of why it would just work so well.
Yes, fully agree with that. But that is also why, rather than anime, I would personally vastly prefer a pure, really, they'd have to put the budget up for it, but like Love, Death, Robots, a pure CGI short. I'd vastly prefer that over an anime thing, because I think with CGI, you not just the detailing, but you get much more in the way of inertia and the kind of dynamics you would need with an Alien or Predator, or especially AVP film. But you could it just allows you to do so much more with lighting, and lighting is really powerful tool, especially with the Alien series.
I think, talking specifically Alien, I would agree with you in terms of you do that in a more realistic fashion. I think AVP and Predator is where I would just like to see those stylized elements used. Alien, yes, I would go down that more realistic.
Because I mean, you compare. We have had there were some short demonstration reels of like a cartoon with a colonial marine facing off against an alien. It was like 5 minutes. Now compare that, right? But compare
that was War Games. It was like a Clone Wars era kind of Cartoon Network kind of thing.
Compare that to the very short trailers they did for Alien Isolation, which was probably the best stuff I've seen on a screen for.
That was Blur Studios, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Blur. It was somebody else, because they also did a trailer for Colonial Marines, the Contact trailer. I'll just Google it while you talk.
Do you mean that was the stuff they made into a series?
No, that was a separate thing. I'm talking about they were actual, like, the trailers they did for Isolation.
Because the Alien Isolation, they made that into a
that was sort of combining the games. This was one where it was
good concept, bad execution on that one.
Amanda going into a garage, and she's sort of getting
the improvised trailer and stuff like that.
And then she has to hide from an alien.
Okay,
that was perfect. That proves
Studios
what CGI could do. I'd want to see that very much.
I mean, I think that was something that Fox did look at, when they were doing the sort of digital series, was visiting these guys, but they were just, again, it's budget. It's budget. Mm-hmm. I would love to see Access Studios do. It's like my desire to see Blur do something for Halo. They've proven themselves. Access has proven they can do some phenomenal CG alien stuff with the Contact trailer, with the improvised stuff like that. I'm sure Access did improvise in those Isolation ones as well. But proof of concept, it's there. Do something with it, and that. Yes, I would fucking love that so much.
Yeah, me too.
Otherwise, I think it's sort of echoed what Adam was saying in terms of what I'd like to see happen. I'm so desperate for a current AVP. I enjoyed 2010, but it didn't. I don't know whether this is just because of the era of gaming that we're in now. AVP2 had such an impact on me in terms of gaming and fandom, because of how long I could play that and how much the community supported that. And 2010 doesn't enjoy that kind of dedication and longevity. I'm so desperate for an AVP that would do that, that would allow fan generated content, that would allow us to make our own missions and skins and stuff like that. So I'd definitely like to see that. I'm very curious to see how this new Cold Iron thing goes. Being
as far as we know, it's coming out next year. Given the fact that they've been testing it with, they finally. I'm theorizing it's a realistic possibility because they found a publisher, hopefully the final one now. And so the studio changed hands a little bit, but now they seem to have found a new publisher that's committed to seeing the game to release. But as far as we know, they've admitted that they've tested the game with music, and typically music is not recorded for a game until the later stages. The prequel novel was supposed to come out this October. It's been delayed to the spring. So next year would make sense, I think. I would hope they would tease it finally during the Game Awards, give us a title. But just like Predator Concrete Jungle, I expect this to be a bigger budget game than that, obviously, and be more expansive given the amount of time they've worked on it in terms of scope. I do think the comparisons to Destiny will probably be accurate, but I do hope it maintains those shooter elements and doesn't go too far into the MMO side of things, which is what Daybreak is kind of known for.
So that's, with that being our only upcoming one, and I'm none of those kind of games have really dragged me in. I couldn't get into Destiny. I couldn't get into what's the Tom Clancy one?
Recon Wildlands?
No, the other one, Division. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get into those. So I'm a little hesitant about this one.
I think Warframe, for me, if they use the template of Warframe as a looter shooter, like you have these little mini expeditions down to the planet and you go back to your ship and you have new gear and stuff. I was surprised, especially as a free-to-play game. Now, I don't hope this is free-to-play, but if it was going to be free-to-play, Warframe would be the perfect template for an Aliens game.
Perfect template for me now, having had the hardware to test it out. If they're going to do another AVP game, and I'm sure someone will eventually, I think right now the technology has matured enough to make it virtual reality. I would love to see an AVP film in virtual reality.
Something built from the ground up for VR would be incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I got a taste of that with Alien Descent, and that was a walk-through attraction experience, which I hope to see back. But that was crazy immersive as an Alien fan to be able to do that. And if they were to build a VR experience from the ground up, now we did have a Predator VR game that looked just kind of gimmicky VR game.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't have to be VR exclusive. You could have an AVP game with VR option, but I think if you made it optional to have VR, that would be.
But it needs
Resident Evil 7 had that option. You look at Alien Isolation, the work that modder has done, that could have easily been patched into the game. I still think they should have released a VR edition of Isolation. That would have been awesome.
It would have had so many heart attacks.
It wouldn't have been as good though. I've played Isolation in VR, and while it is still good, it's not built from the ground up for it, so it doesn't work perfectly. I would love something built from the ground up for VR.
It does need to have that architecture,
and then it can also work as its own traditional thing, like Persistence, which is a sci-fi horror thing that was released as a VR thing and then released as a traditional thing afterwards. That's kind of like what I'd like to see as well. So I think that's pretty much everything in terms of my desires. Let's keep Titan going strong, and we'll have to see how Marvel does. Eric, lead us away towards the end.
I think we've covered most things. I would say in terms of film continuity development, whether or not you go it's wrong to say the Blomkamp route, because he was going to take account of Alien 3 and Resurrection, more the Weaver route of setting it after Aliens or Alien Resurrection. Regardless of whether you do that, I think if you're going to do another film, it should be a sequel. And if you really have this burning desire to see what happened with David, include those elements in flashbacks. You don't have to devote an entire film to a prequel now, because it's like Aaron said, I don't trust Scott. We've already heard his ideas, what he wants to do. He wants to make it all about the, quote, dangers of developing AI. He wants to make it like a War of the Worlds thing. It's not. That's like Tyrannid, Warhammer type stuff. That's not alien stuff. But if if there's a demographic that has this burning need to find out what is the resolution with David, or even what was the story behind the derelict, you can do that stuff in flashbacks in a new sequel that doesn't have to be painted into that prequel corner. I think that would be the way to do it. In fact, an interesting way to do it would be like they did with the fourth Hellraiser film, where that actually started off in like Victorian days or a little bit further back, and then it went the present, and then it did into the future, and it was like a semi-anthology thing, but it had one single thread of a story that sort of connected it all together, which would be an interesting route.
That could be interesting with Predator. Like AJ saying earlier about a recurring Predator character. That would be fun, because again, we've all completely failed to mention the idea of moving the Predator around in the timeline in a moving sense.
I think we've always said that Predator's stories set back in time in historical definitely be a draw.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, think how popular Dark Ages is, and that's a fan film. Give us that on a theatrical level. I mean, it would be expensive, but I think that would do really well.
Yeah, because Predator films, unlike alien films, tend to usually revolve around them encountering aliens, and then someone says, "Oh my God, we can't let them get back to civilization." Whereas with a Predator film, it's about hunting down a limited number of people anyway. The only consequences it would have if it set off its self-destruct. Aside from that, Predator is uniquely suited to being set at any period in time.
Hey guys, real quick.
Outside of gone.
I need a bathroom break.
Okay.
And pause.
I will be back.
Okay. We'll wait for him.
Yeah.
It was that beer.
Oh. Went right through.
That's part of the reason why when everyone said, "Hey, alcohol," I was thinking, no, it's going to make me go during the thing.
You know what? I think I might try and squeeze one out if we're...
Wow.
It's just the older guys.
Talking about being frank.
So what I was saying before is,
yes,
RidgeTop told me this was a what to do with the future of AVP. So,
yeah, Aaron just said the future in general to me. So
yeah, so that's I had to approach it from that context.
Yeah, when you were saying wipe the slate clean, you meant just with the AVP films.
Yeah, I thought. Well, I mean,
I thought you were meant like the original Alien and Predator.
I did in the context of this is the way you make AVP work. You either abandon AVP or this is the way you make AVP work. You rebrand, you pull the universe together, and you make it. You take the corniness, you take the conflict out of it, and just create this universe where they will have some conflict, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
So I thought in those confines, if you either, that's the only way you can make AVP work. Is that approach. If you want to have more AVP films, if you want to have AVP be a great success, that was the approach I was going at, that you have to wipe the slate clean. Yeah. If
He's back.
Oh, they're back. Okay.
Hello.
Hey.
All right, Eric's up again.
Eric,
I
feel free
guess.
to continue.
Lost my train of thought now.
We just finished talking about predators in the
films,
past.
But yeah, I think shorts, especially with The Mandalorian, that has really been the testing ground in terms of the studios are now aware of just how viable financially putting that out on a streaming service. You wouldn't really have had that in past times. It's only really now that is a really mature, viable medium. So if I had to make a prediction, I would say we might see shorts before another film. What else have we covered though?
I think what haven't we covered at this point?
Yeah, really. I mean, we could say like I don't know, a theme. Well, no, they were going to do a theme. What's happened with that theme park
It's
that they were
still being
doing?
made. It's still being made.
Is that hasn't been?
You mean the Malaysia one?
Is Disney taken over yet, or?
I think, Adam, you probably know better at this point, wouldn't you? What's the state of Foxworld Gentings?
So I've been keeping up with. No, it's not in limbo. They came to an agreement in court with Disney. They're changing the name. I think it's Genting Skyworlds now or something. It was going to be called 20th Century Fox World before, but naturally, they still get to use some of the properties, and I'm pretty sure Alien is still a property. I've been keeping up with construction updates on that, and construction is mostly complete. It looks like it's 95% complete as far as I can tell. They were planning to open this year. The pandemic obviously slowed that down and halted those plans. Assuming the world kind of gets back to normal next year, they'll probably be open sometime next summer. But yeah, that's something I've had my eye on since they announced it, like, 7 years ago or something. Like, it's been a minute. That's been a long process, but as far as I can tell, it's just an aliens themed land. A little different than we originally saw with the concept art. You know, they first had this big derelict. Now doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like more aliens colony aesthetic, where they have a number of different theme park style rides that you see in a number of theme parks, like the elevator drop and a couple of rides that maybe are catered towards families. But they do have the main attraction, which looks like a part dark ride, part roller coaster type deal, which that has some potential. And I would love to hopefully find myself in Malaysia to experience that. It kind of reminds me of the Revenge of the Mummy ride, if anyone's been on that in the Universal Studios parks, whereas it's part coaster, part dark ride, but really cool. So that's what I'm hoping from that. Speaking
of the theme parks and stuff like that as well, I mean, I know we mentioned Descent earlier. I'd like to see that travel.
Yeah. I would imagine with the amount of work they put into that, they weren't planning on it just being a one-time thing. I wonder if the Disney transfer is kind of halted that, as well as the pandemic. But I would love to see that back. I would love to see, like, different adventures set up. So, like, each time you experienced it, it would be like a different planet or something, a different operation.
Weren't they on about introducing Predator into that as well? Or am I getting mixed up with Alien War?
You might be thinking of Alien War, but that
in the Glasgow one.
This brings us to another part of the things I'd like to see, which are attractions, like actual experiences we get to do. Like, we did the Madame Tussauds thing in London, Aaron, and I thought that was fun. But as a concept, that really works, doing those spooky walkthroughs. Like the ones they did for Halloween Horror Nights were fantastic. So I would love to see more of that. And to this day, Alien remains the only R-rated property that's ever been represented inside of a Disney theme park, formerly in the Great Movie Ride. So I think Alien and Predator both have real potential in terms of actual physical attractions that you go visit and experience. And I would love to see more of those in the years ahead.
Yeah, I can't think there aren't many things that Alien at least has not, because they're even bringing out a cookery book soon. What hasn't it done? Like a scratch and sniff card game? I don't know how that would work. Because we've now got the RPG, which is very good. I would say what I would like to happen is this goes in general for films, really, physical releases on DVD and Blu-ray for them to bring back the special feature stuff. Because there is that move now to just make everything digital, and they put a lot with the most recent Terminator film, which I wasn't a fan of, but with that they had the physical release, which was basically just the film and maybe one or two other things, but they had all the special features on the digital release. But of course, what happens if that goes off the servers or whatever? You want your own copy. I would like to see a return for that, just in general, for all films, really.
No argument here.
It's unfortunate that it seems special features and physical media are
on the way out.
on the way out. They're losing to digital. You know, I watched a YouTube video recently done by Alien Theory where he went over the original Alien Legacy DVD releases, and just seeing all the different animated menus for those, all the work they put into that, all the new special features. I really do miss that.
My original, I've got like 4 or 5 versions of the Aliens DVD just because of those menus.
Yep. No, one of my best memories as a fan will always be opening that anthology when it came out around holiday time, or not anthology, the quadrilogy, the first quadrilogy release, and just unfolding it, and it was this big. I think the set was a little different in the UK era, and I think
ours was just a book style thing, but our anthology was like that. Was like that with the unfolding. Yes. God, that friggin' deep. Charles spoiled me when it came to special features and knowledge of the films. God,
that's going to be a lost art form.
Here's something I would really like to see. So much merchandise with figures and statues, and people always post them on the forums. Oh, these guys, they've made this. And you look at the price of the thing, it's thousands and thousands. Nobody's going to afford it. I'd like to see a return to affordable merchandise, please. Especially today in the age of 3D printing, you do not even have to make them solid pieces. You can make them hollow. It cuts down on the price for the sheer raw materials. With things like 3D printing, we should have had a return to the older prices that people can get like 2 or 3 figures for whatever. They were nice to look at. Imagine what they could do in today's world with today's level of detail, but making that so that ordinary people can afford them. I would love to see that.
Even the NECA stuff nowadays is just I could buy a McFarlane's or a NECA's early figures for like 15 quid a piece. Now we're talking 30, 35, 40.
I think you guys should check out Diamond Select. I'm not sure if they've done.
I was just going to bring them up because they've been doing PVC stuff, and it was the PVC statues that they've just done recently, wasn't it? But in particular,
the coin
friggin'
banks?
money banks. These things are fantastic looking.
Yeah.
And
how much was that
20 quid? All of these. I still need to buy a Predator one, actually. So
you got that cover
Warrior,
one too, huh?
Big Chap, and the Covenant one. They're all about 20 quid. They do a Predator
that
one
kind of price.
One. Yeah.
And Diamond Select does these like 12-inch statues made out of PVC. They're hand painted, and they look like the resin. And they look like they're $150 statues, and they just did one of the Jungle Hunter, I think.
I honestly didn't like that one because they used the mask of AVP 2010, and then unmasked, he looked pretty terrible when they released that one. Mezco is supposed to release a Big Chap and a Jungle Hunter figure soon, so
and how much are those going to be, though?
Those are probably a little more pricey. Those are probably 50, 60 range. But again, I'm happy to see a wide range of collectibles now, all the way from the NECA and Diamond Select stuff to even Sideshow doing.
That's what I'm saying. It's stuff. One thing to have loads of this stuff, but if not many ordinary people can afford 2 or 3 of it, it just rubs me the wrong way. That's all. I would like to see a return to that. You're able to get this stuff with today's quality at the prices where you go, you used to be able to get this stuff for cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that's just inflation, and
but it wasn't that long ago.
Well, even imports.
3D printing is meant to make things much cheaper to create.
I think import tax has a lot on it as well. I mean, especially for us, I remember talking about it with my comic shop. We were like, I could buy these for 15 quid back in my day, and he was saying about how import tax really affected it. I mean, I don't think I've really talked about it on the podcast, but you guys know how much I'm into airsoft.
Yeah.
And there's a particular Japanese brand called Tokyo Marui. And back when I started 10, 15 years ago, they were really good quality, but for a really good price, £150. Nowadays, you'll be lucky if you can get them for under 300 quid. And a lot of that is to do with import tax. So, real world bollocks there. Right, is that? Yeah, I think that's everything.
One last thing to mention.
We'd like to see more stuff better made, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it,
Yeah.
that's
we
what
can
we like
afford.
to see. I forgot to mention one thing. I love the Alien Anniversary shorts. I would love to see a physical release of that with behind the scenes material.
Yep.
And next year is a perfect opportunity. It's the 35th anniversary of Aliens. Give us another competition, another set of anniversary shorts. So some filmmakers can show us what they got.
Certain editing software, though, make it open.
Yeah, but give us the vibe and aesthetic of Aliens, something to celebrate that second film's anniversary. You don't have to have everyone have Colonial Marines in it or anything, but just have the vibe of that time period in the series, I think.
And it'd be nice to see that stuff for Predator as well. I mean, because of the flexibility of the Predator series, you could do all sorts.
Well, it'd be nice to see Alien Day make it, but I understand that's the outbreak. That's, Disney haven't got anything new to put out, but it'd be nice to see Alien Day make a bigger comeback.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's only really been 2 good Alien Days. Let's be honest, anyway. So,
Aaron, I know some fans have kind of been panicking about that Alien Universe website being taken down. What do you think about that?
I do not consider it anything to panic over. I've been around the block a long time. Not as long as some people have, but I've seen plenty of Alien websites that just haven't been renewed. I mean, one of the big websites that I sort of grew up with, came up with in terms of the fandom was AVP News, and it was, it was what we do. And it was run by fans, but it was owned by Fox, so they owned the domain. And when the domain was up for renewal, Fox wouldn't let the fans take it and continue. So that was another official website that was shut down, and it didn't spell the end of
the Predator fan app as well.
Yeah, the Predator fan app.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's nothing to worry about. It's just the focus has gone. Will it be a long time before we see anything Alien from Disney? Maybe, because the fucking world's in a state and Disney's in a state, and Alien and Predator aren't their most profitable franchises.
I think it's just
that's what you
disappointing.
said earlier. I think if they make whatever they make, I think if they make it smaller in scale and just get back to the basics of what made the originals work, because the basic thing is everybody says, "Oh yeah, I really like Alien or Predator or Aliens," but people who are not part of the fan base, that's pretty much all they know. There needs to be something which gets praise for it going, oh yeah, that's what I liked about these films. They need to make it smaller in scale, but make the formula work again, like Alien Isolation did.
I just want to caveat before we sign off. I was just going under the context. It's a little embarrassing of a different direction of how do we make AVP work, because I don't think AVP works in the long form. But if we're just looking at the separate franchises, I just want to say real quick that first, Disney, do not expect Marvel numbers with these movies. Don't expect $1 billion. Don't expect $500,000 or $500 million. And look to the short films for Alien. Look to the short films, what you could do on a lower budget, and look at the incredible results you can get. Look at the new Halloween. Put it in that perspective. And with Predator, look towards slasher films. Again, look towards Halloween. Small budgets, different landscapes. You could really make these films work. Go back to basics. And the fans will come. No, not to the big blockbuster numbers, but you will make a profit. And maybe that means just on streaming. Maybe these movies aren't meant for theatrical release anymore. But if you want these films to be successful, this is the way you go. And that's my opinion on that.
My only worry with doing it on a smaller, sort of like Blumkamp kind of scale, and this is talking completely personal here, is I'm so desperate to see a Giga World. I'm so desperate to see a
It's
hive
not gonna
world
happen. Give up on it.
and the land of dicks that he did for
I
for
think
Dune.
you could have. Remember in Requiem where you got that glimpse of a predator? Doesn't have to be their homeworld, but you had something
Yeah, but
like that.
It was only a glimpse,
No, but
again on.
But look at how the Mandalorian does it. I think you could do it with the kind of stuff the way the Mandalorian does it.
Technology.
I think you get that still. It doesn't have to. The story can be more like under a pressure cooker type thing, more self-contained. But you could still have that kind of visuals somewhere in the production.
Definitely. Filmmaking technology is just getting so advanced and accessible now, and things that would have taken massive budgets before are becoming a lot more affordable now, thankfully. And I think that aspect alone is going to allow for solid alien films to be made on a lower budget. You know, they could make them just like Mandalorian. Mandalorian doesn't have the biggest budget, I would think, compared to the films, but I would say it's just as an effective exploration of that same universe, if not more effective. Now, I feel that with Alien, the prequels have had bloated budgets, and they could very much be streamlined. Not every sci-fi franchise needs to be the size of Star Wars. I mean, look at The Expanse, right? It's a popular sci-fi series that was saved by the passion of its fans. That's not a huge property, but it has a very passionate, enthusiastic fan base that has kept it alive. And I do think that Alien and Predator are going to be the same way.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, do go watch The Expanse. It's fantastic. With some Alien alumni in it as well, actually. Any other final thoughts or anything? Okay.
I was going to say real quick, I think people were disappointed with the Alien Universe website shutting down, not just because it was another site shutting down, but because it seemed like it was going to be this official database and community by Fox, kind of like they had with, kind of like Disney's had with Star Wars, where you can go on there and it's a wealth of information about the universe. It looked like that's what they were going to do with Alien, but now they're not.
We've already got the wikis.
Yeah, well, that website has existed for like 4 years. Fox's intent may have been for it to be something at some point, but it was never really maintained. It going now.
Not beyond Covenant year.
No. It going now.
That's probably.
Yeah, the domain will be up for renewal, and they'll be like, sod it. It's no loss at all, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's been like the DVD websites. You know, Alien Legacy was a website at one point that went. You know, the quadrilogies, the movie ones. It's no loss. It is no loss, and I don't believe any real indication of any malice on Disney's part in terms of killing the series or anything.
And really, nothing whether it's Fox or Disney have done so far online has ever really come close to something like Strange Shapes blog or the Anchor Point essays.
The official stuff never.
Yeah, it was never as good as what the fandom has created anyway.
No, I agree there. I agree.
This was going to be a short one, was it, Aaron?
I had envisioned this as being a short one.
Every time it gets jinxed.
Apparently, we can waffle and go at each other for quite a while. Thank you, everybody who has watched this. I appreciate we don't tend to do too much like this kind of thing, and you know we do tend to stick to what's sort of happening at the time, which on the one level is really awesome because it means there's plenty happening at the time. And that's how the next, I imagine, good few episodes are going to be. Next episode, unless Adam pulls that interview out his hat. So the next episode is likely to be the Predator 2 retrospective, because we are coming up on the big 3-0 next month.
30 years.
And then after that, yes, that's going to be fun because we've never really talked about that in any great detail. And
Eric's favorite movie.
Eric and AJ are going to be going at it, so this will be entertaining. We've got 3 comic series ending soon, so we'll be doing those ones. And for our last AVP themed episode of the year, we are going to be visiting Hunter's Planet. You guys have spoken, and that is what we are going to be checking. Although I think I now need to know if Eric has that.
I used to have it. Then I moved, so I'm going to have to get a new copy.
So then we'll see what the new year brings us.
I think we didn't talk about it a lot, but I think Marvel's going to be big. With a comic publisher that big, we'll probably get multiple series. So
we'll see. That's going to be the big question with those guys. And of course, hopefully we'll have the new game next year. But anyway, I'm jumping ahead. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And actually, before we finish, Adam, show and tell.
Our shirts. Yeah. So Aaron and I, and you guys are welcome to join us when you come on the podcast. We like to wear theme-appropriate shirts for the podcast. And Aaron suggested maybe we start showing them off for our viewers on YouTube. I am wearing
our microphones are always in the way of them when we're recording, so you can't really see.
You can't really see the full shirts, but I am wearing a teaser poster shirt for AVP, the movie
of Scar.
Yeah, and Aaron has a bit of a more rare shirt.
Falling over. So this is just the logo. But
that's from the game, isn't it?
Yeah. Alien. So this was a promo shirt for Classic, AVP Classic, AVP 1999, 2000, whatever.
And this is just a lot of lines, which is a little bit like the Aliens logo at the start.
You guys find an Alien T-shirt next time.
They have done in the past, but you never really see them. And I thought it would be a nice sort of little feature just to show them off at the end of the episodes, just so people can see some of the shit in our collection. Because again, that's never really something we highlight. Just
do a close up of that stuff behind you there.
That could be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
That's what we should do. That would make for a good YouTube video. Just give like a room tour of that room, Aaron, of your entire collection.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, there's lots of books and comics and stuff, but it sort of pales in comparison to, like Eric was saying, the people with the money that can afford the £1,000 busts and stuff like that. I love my bookshelf behind me. I love all the stuff.
Some of those literally look like museums. Some people kit entire rooms out with stuff.
Yeah, there's some impressive. I will always be jealous of the people that have the money to splash out on that kind of shit. But
and a lot of it isn't even made anymore.
Like this. Ooh, where is he? I've lost it. Where have I put it? Here we are. I found him. Palisades, once upon a time, did some
statues.
Gorgeous little mini busts. And these things were pretty affordable at the time, like 25, 30 quid. Phenomenal little pieces that just aren't made. Then these were the micro busts, I think they did. They did some, proper size, nice things, like the money banks, but they were affordable as well. And now, because they don't make them, I don't even know if Palisades is in business anymore.
They're not. They're really hard to find now. I still have a few. I have the AVP Queen bust as well as the micro
with the
Aliens Queen.
Chains going through it. That thing was gorgeous. Yeah, maybe we'll do some show and tell videos for the YouTube channel. We will do. I've been meaning to. I've wanted to, but I've always been like, is it actually impressive enough collection to really do? But yeah, why not? Let's sod it. Let's do it. Okay, cool. Thank you everybody who has been listening. Thank you everybody who has been watching. The hub of our activity can be found at avpgalaxy.net. That's where all our news is, and that's where our message boards are, and it's pretty much where all the branches of our other reaches go. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But yeah, come and join us, come and check us out, and come and join in with the discussion with us guys. It's not as scary as I think AJ was kind of making it sound earlier.
There's no pitchforks and torches.
There isn't. I do try and make sure everybody behaves. That's why I'm hated by the people that I kick out for being jackasses. But yeah, thank you everybody, guys. This has been Corporal Hicks,
RidgeTop,
Xenomorphine,
and Voodoo Magic,
signing off.